Hello, welcome to Unlocking Buddhism. Today, we approach a sensitive subject, the relationship between God and the Buddha. Have you ever wondered what happens when a spiritual path doesn't revolve around God at all? Today, we're diving into one of the most surprising aspects of Buddhism, a tradition that doesn't reject the idea of God, but also doesn't depend on it to offer peace. By the end of this video, you may see faith, suffering, and freedom in a completely new light. You might find it strange. Wait, how can a religion not believe in God? Does that even exist? Yes, it does. And not only does it exist, it's one of the oldest and most respected traditions in the world, Buddhism. But that doesn't mean Buddhists are against God, or that they think believers are wrong. The truth is, Buddhism follows a different path. In this video, we'll explore why the idea of a creator God isn't central to Buddhism, and what's placed at the center instead. We'll talk about wisdom, freedom, and the kind of transformation that doesn't come from above, but from within. And we'll do it in a simple, clear way, like a good conversation between friends. So if you've ever been curious about belief beyond belief, take a deep breath and come with me. Before we try to understand why Buddhists don't believe in God, it's important to understand what Buddhism is actually about. Instead of starting with explanations about the origin of the universe or who's in charge of everything, Buddhism begins with a simple and direct question: why do we suffer? And what can we do here and now to ease that suffering? While many other religions are often concerned with what happens after death or how to please a supreme being, the Buddha chose to focus on the present, the immediate reality of human life. He wasn't against more philosophical or religious questions, but he believed that many of them distracted us from what really matters. Living well now, with wisdom, clarity, and compassion. Imagine someone with a terrible toothache, but at that moment, the priority is just one thing: easing the pain. That's how the Buddha thought. He said that suffering is like an arrow stuck in your body. If you've been shot with an arrow, what you want is to remove it and take care of the wound. Not waste time asking where it came from, who shot it, what the bow was made of, or what the archer's name was. Those questions may have value one day, but not while you're in pain. And that's where Buddhist teaching comes in. The goal of Buddhism is not to explain how the world was created, nor to affirm or deny the existence of a creator. The focus is on understanding how the human mind works, how suffering arises, and how it can end. He often stayed silent, not because he lacked the intelligence to answer, but because he believed those questions didn't help bring inner peace. The Buddhist view is that suffering comes from ignorance, attachment, anger, and fear. And liberation only happens when a person wakes up to the true nature of life, learns to see things as they really are, and stops clinging to illusions. This awakening doesn't depend on external beliefs. It depends on inner change. That's why the Buddha focused on teaching how to look within, how to observe thoughts and emotions, how to develop compassion, patience, and wisdom. Above all, Buddhism is a practice of personal transformation. It doesn't ask for faith in a divine figure, but rather courage to look inward and face your own illusions. It's a philosophy that believes in the power of the human mind to purify itself, to free itself, and to find a kind of happiness that doesn't depend on external circumstances. So, to answer the question, what does Buddhism seek? It seeks the liberation from suffering, not through magical rituals or heavenly rewards, but through deep understanding of life and the workings of the mind. It's a practical, simple, yet incredibly profound proposal. And that's why, in this tradition, the question of God isn't the center of the conversation. The center is your mind, your experience, your journey. It makes sense because the word faith is usually tied to the idea of believing in something invisible and greater than us, of accepting truths revealed by a deity. But in Buddhism, faith means something very different. In Buddhism, you're not expected to believe in something just because it's written in a sacred book or because a teacher said so. The Buddha himself was very clear about this. Don't believe anything just because someone told you, not even if that someone was the Buddha. He encouraged investigation, healthy doubt, and direct observation of reality. What he wanted was for people to seek the truth through their own experience. Imagine someone tells you about an amazing fruit, sweet, juicy, delicious, and they describe it in great detail. You listen, believe, and imagine the taste. But only when you actually bite into the fruit do you really know. That's what Buddhism is about. It's not about accepting theories. It's about experiencing truth with your own senses, heart, and mind. But not blind confidence. It's a trust that grows as you practice, notice real changes, and see the effects in your daily life. For example, when someone starts meditating and realizes they feel calmer, less reactive, sleeping better, that confidence builds. Not because someone promised it, but because they saw it for themselves and felt it directly. It's like learning how to swim. At first, you may fear the water, but over time, with practice and patience, you learn you can float, breathe, move, and then your confidence grows. No one needs to convince you. You just know, because you lived it. That's the core difference. Buddhism doesn't ask people to accept supernatural explanations. It invites them to look closely at their own lives, their patterns, their thoughts, emotions, actions. It says that true faith is the kind that grows from direct contact with reality. So contrary to what some might think, Buddhism isn't cold, nor is it skeptical in a negative sense. It values faith, a living, dynamic kind of faith that's built over time through practice and sincere investigation. It's a kind of faith that doesn't close you off from the world, but opens you up. It encourages you to go deeper and be honest with yourself. The Buddha taught that real liberation only happens when it comes from within, when it's truly felt by you. Reciting nice phrases, memorizing prayers, or copying someone else's behavior isn't enough. You have to see with your own eyes, feel with your own heart, and walk with your own feet. That's why Buddhism says, don't follow the path of blind faith. Follow the path of direct experience. Try it, observe, reflect, and trust what you discover for yourself. A lot of people grow up believing in a supreme being who created the universe, watches everything we do, and decides what happens to us. In many religions, this being is described as all-powerful and all-loving, someone who rewards us when we're good and corrects us when we're wrong. And that's okay. That view brings comfort to many and can be a powerful support during hard times. But Buddhism takes a different path. For Buddhists, liberation from suffering doesn't depend on the will of a higher power, a miracle, or the approval of someone up there watching over us. Liberation, meaning deep peace, inner freedom, the end of suffering, comes from within. It happens when the mind awakens, when a person begins to clearly see how things truly work. So, the idea of a creator God simply isn't necessary in Buddhism. Not because Buddhism is trying to reject or attack the idea, but because it just doesn't play a role in the way Buddhist practice works. It's like having two different recipes for the same kind of spiritual nourishment. One recipe requires a key ingredient that comes from outside, faith in a divine being. The other uses only what you already have inside you: attention, reflection, effort, compassion, self-knowledge. Both paths can have value, but Buddhism chose the second one. The Buddha taught that every human being has within them the seed of enlightenment. That means each person carries the potential to be free, conscious, and awake. But that seed needs to be nurtured, with practice, patience, and wisdom. The path isn't easy, but it's always available to those who choose to walk it. And the most interesting part is that no one can do it for you. Not the Buddha, not a god, not even a teacher. The transformation only happens when you choose to look inward and work with your own mind. This approach might seem demanding. After all, it's easier to hope that someone else will fix everything for us. But it can also be incredibly empowering, because it puts the control of your journey back in your hands. You're no longer waiting for divine intervention. You're taking the reins of your life with awareness and courage. That's why the idea of God isn't the focus in Buddhism. The focus is on practice, on observation, on ethics, on real transformation. The Buddha didn't promise a paradise after death. He promised the end of suffering here and now for those who are willing to walk the path sincerely. Among the many stories passed down in Buddhism, one of the most touching is the tale of a mother who lost her young child. It's a simple story, but it carries a deep message that has lasted for centuries, and it helps explain why Buddhism doesn't rely on miracles or divine interventions to deal with human pain. They say that once, a woman was completely devastated by the death of her baby. Unable to accept the loss, she walked through town carrying the child's body in her arms, asking anyone she met for help. Some pitied her, others said there was nothing to be done, until someone suggested, "Go see the Buddha." She went. With a broken heart, she knelt before the Buddha and begged, "Please, bring my child back to life. Work a miracle. I'll do anything." The Buddha listened kindly and replied, "I can do that, but I need one ingredient. Just a single mustard seed, but it must come from a house where no one has ever died." Hopeful, the woman set off immediately. She knocked on the first door and asked, "Do you have a mustard seed?" "Of course, we have plenty," they said. She then asked, "But has anyone ever died in this house?" The answer came quickly. "Yes, we lost our grandmother 2 years ago." She thanked them and moved on, and the story repeated. One house had lost a brother, another, a child, another, a husband. In every home, death had already visited. After many visits, the woman began to realize something. She wasn't alone in her pain. The suffering she felt was also present in the lives of others, and this awareness started to change everything. She returned to the Buddha, now in silence. She didn't bring the mustard seed, but she brought something far more valuable, the understanding that death is an inevitable part of everyone's life, and that true relief from suffering wouldn't come from a miracle bringing her child back, but from a deep shift in how she understood reality. This story is powerful because it shows exactly how Buddhism deals with pain, loss, and life's challenges. Instead of offering supernatural promises, the Buddha offered a path of understanding and wisdom. He didn't try to take pain away with the snap of a finger. He helped us look directly at what hurts, and to find right there the seed of transformation. The woman who once sought a miracle discovered that the true miracle was the awakening of awareness, realizing that everyone goes through loss, that suffering isn't punishment or bad luck, but part of the human experience, and that by accepting this with an open heart, something inside us can change in a way that's irreversible. This story also shows why, in Buddhism, a God isn't necessary to explain or solve suffering. What's offered instead is something different, the wisdom that comes from personal experience, from the journey itself. It's not about denying pain, it's about moving through it with clarity and coming out the other side with a heart that's more open, stronger, and more compassionate. Instead of a miracle, the Buddha offered a teaching. Instead of an external power's intervention, he showed the power of clear perception and deep understanding. That's the path he pointed to. Not running away from life, but understanding it. Not denying death, but accepting it as part of the whole. Not looking for someone to fix everything for us, but learning how to fix things from within. That's one of the most beautiful traits of Buddhism. Respect for pain, belief in each person's ability to transform that pain into wisdom, and a commitment to a real grounded path that begins right where we are, here and now. After all this, one question might still remain. If Buddhism doesn't believe in a creator God and doesn't seek miracles or external salvation, then what does it offer? The answer might surprise you. Buddhism offers liberation through awareness, responsibility, and personal practice. It gives you not a promise, but a path that doesn't depend on divine blessings, but on daily choices, mindful observation, and inner transformation. Instead of placing all hope in something external, like a divine being who controls our fate, Buddhism focuses on what happens inside each person's mind and heart. It's as if it says, everything you need to free yourself from suffering is already within you. And to help with that, Buddhism offers practical tools. No magical formulas or secret rituals. We're talking about meditation, mindfulness, daily ethics, study of the mind, reflection on the roots of suffering. These are practices that help you see reality more clearly, handle difficult emotions, and develop compassion for yourself and others. Meditation, for example, isn't some mystical or far-off exercise. It's essentially training in observation. It's sitting, breathing, and noticing what's going on in your mind, watching your thoughts come and go, watching anxiety rise and fall, watching anger grow and fade. Over time, you begin to realize you are not your thoughts or your emotions. You can observe them, understand how they arise, and then choose how to respond. Mindfulness is another core practice. It means being present, fully present in each moment, whether you're washing dishes, talking to someone, or facing a problem. Because life happens in the present moment, not in the past that's gone, nor the future that hasn't arrived yet. Buddhism teaches that peace isn't found in a distant paradise, but in how we live each moment with presence and clarity. And what happens when you start practicing all of this? Little by little, you stop reacting on autopilot. You begin to notice the patterns that cause your suffering. You learn to let go of what holds you back. You see more clearly the roots of your pain, and also the paths to overcome it. That's the real Buddhist miracle, a mind that frees itself from its own illusions. The Buddhist proposal is simple but profound. You can free yourself, but no one else can do it for you. Not the Buddha, not a master, not a god. The Buddha's role was to show the way. Who decides to walk it and how is entirely up to you. So, instead of belief in a God who saves, Buddhism offers an invitation to spiritual autonomy. It calls you to look inward, with courage, and discover who you really are. Not the you that changes all the time, caught up in thoughts and emotions, but a mind that is awake, clear, and full of compassion, that has always been there, just waiting to be seen. In the end, Buddhism doesn't say you need to believe in something. It says you need to investigate. And more than that, to practice, to feel, to experience. Because truth, according to the Buddha, is not an idea to be debated. It's a reality to be lived. And maybe, along this path, you'll realize that the greatest power in the universe isn't somewhere up in the sky. It's right here, inside you, in your own awareness and awakened heart. That's the gift Buddhism offers. A path of liberation that begins and ends with you. It's a small way to show you're walking with us. So, in the end, Buddhism isn't saying that God doesn't exist. It's just saying that maybe we don't need that idea in order to find peace. Instead of waiting for an invisible force to fix everything for us, Buddhism invites us to look inward, take a deep breath, and begin the transformation with our own hands. It's a bold proposal, yes, but it's also liberating, because it says that the strength you're looking for is already inside you. Buddhism reminds us that wisdom isn't a gift sent from the sky. It's a discovery born in the silence of the mind and the clarity of the heart. So, did it make sense to you? If this conversation helped you see things in a new way, or at least left you with that good kind of question lingering in your mind, then you know what to do. Leave a like, share it with someone who also enjoys reflecting on life, and subscribe to the channel so we can keep walking this path together. Here, we don't bring ready-made answers, but we ask the right questions. See you in the next video.